Good luck or bad luck, who knows? Discover the timeless wisdom hidden in an old farmer's puzzling response to life's events. Have you ever wondered if what seems like misfortune today might actually be a blessing in disguise? Or if today's good luck might lead to tomorrow's challenges? Life has a mysterious way of unfolding that often defies our immediate judgments. This ancient Chinese tale of wisdom will show you how a simple farmer understood this profound truth long before modern philosophy caught up. Hello, wonderful listeners, and welcome back to LMJ English. I'm thrilled to have you join me today for another captivating story that not only entertains, but also enriches your English language skills while imparting timeless wisdom. Today's tale, The Destiny, will take you on a journey through the mountains of ancient China, where an old farmer's remarkable outlook on life challenges how we perceive good and bad fortune. Before we dive into this fascinating story that has been shared across generations, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly stories that help you master English through the power of storytelling. Learning a language should be an adventure, and that's exactly what we aim to provide with each story we share. Now, let's travel back in time to a small mountain village in China where an old farmer's wisdom about destiny is about to unfold. The isolated life of the mountain farmer. In a small village nestled among the majestic mountains of central China, an old farmer lived a life of quiet solitude. Each morning, before the sun had fully risen over the jagged peaks, he would emerge from his modest wooden house to begin his day's labor. His weathered hands, marked by decades of toil, moved with practiced efficiency as he tended to his crops and animals. The old man's face, lined with age and experience, rarely betrayed his thoughts, though his eyes held a spark of wisdom that the villagers had come to respect. His only son, a young man with ambitions beyond the confines of their mountain village, had left years ago to pursue education in a distant city. The separation weighed heavily on the old farmer's heart, for he missed his son's company and could certainly have used his strong arms for the demanding farm work. Yet, despite the loneliness and the physical toll of managing the farm alone, the old man never uttered a word of complaint. The villagers often passed by his property and would stop to offer assistance or express their sympathy for his situation. "It must be difficult for you, working alone at your age," they would say. "Such bad luck that your son must study so far away." Their faces showed genuine concern as they watched the elderly man performing tasks better suited for someone half his age. But the farmer's response always surprised them. With a serene smile that softened his weathered features, he would simply reply, "Bad luck or good luck, who knows?" This peculiar phrase became so associated with the old man that the villagers often discussed it among themselves, wondering what hidden meaning lay behind those cryptic words. Some thought he was merely being polite, declining their sympathy without seeming ungrateful. Others believed he was simply a man of few words, uncomfortable with lengthy conversations. What none yet understood was that this simple phrase encapsulated a profound philosophy that guided the farmer's entire approach to life. He had learned through his many years that fortune was fickle, that what appeared disastrous today might reveal itself as a blessing tomorrow, and that apparent good fortune could lead to unexpected difficulties. This wisdom allowed him to face each day with remarkable equanimity, neither overly elated by good news nor crushed by setbacks. As the seasons changed and years passed, the old farmer continued his solitary existence, patiently awaiting visits from his son while maintaining his farm with quiet determination. His philosophical outlook remained a curiosity to the villagers, who could not fathom how a man facing such obvious hardship could remain so peacefully detached from judgment about his circumstances. Little did they know that life was about to present a series of events that would make the profound wisdom of the old farmer's philosophy clear to everyone in the village, changing forever how they viewed the unpredictable twists and turns of destiny. The unexpected return and the village's joy. On a crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves drifted from the trees surrounding the village, an unexpected figure appeared on the winding mountain path. Tall and lean, with the confident stride of youth but the thoughtful demeanor of someone who had seen more of the world than most villagers, the old farmer's son had returned home. His arrival sent ripples of excitement through the small community, and within hours, everyone knew that the old man's solitude had come to an end. The sun was just beginning to set, painting the mountains with hues of amber and purple, when the villagers began gathering at the old farmer's house. They came bearing small gifts, homemade rice wine, freshly harvested vegetables, and sweet cakes, to celebrate the reunion of father and son. Their faces beamed with genuine happiness for the old man, whose quiet suffering they had witnessed for so long. "Your fortune has finally changed," exclaimed the blacksmith, slapping the old farmer on the back. "Now your house will be filled with good luck and happiness again. Your son has returned to help at the farm, and you'll no longer have to work alone." Other villagers nodded in agreement, their expressions showing relief and satisfaction. "We always felt sorry for you, working these fields alone at your age," added the village elder. "But now the heavens have smiled upon you. Your patience has been rewarded." The old farmer listened to their joyful proclamations with the same gentle smile that had become his trademark. His eyes momentarily flickered with happiness as he glanced at his son, but when he turned back to address the villagers, his response remained unchanged. Good luck or bad luck, who knows? The celebration continued despite the farmer's philosophical restraint, with neighbors sharing stories and laughter late into the evening. They recounted tales of the young man's childhood mischief, asked him about his studies in the city, and expressed their delight at seeing father and son reunited. Throughout the festivities, the old farmer watched contentedly, appreciating the moment without pronouncing judgment on whether this change in circumstances was ultimately fortunate or unfortunate. As the villagers finally departed into the star-filled night, they chattered among themselves about the old man's curious response to what was clearly a joyous occasion. "He's been alone so long that he's forgotten how to celebrate good fortune," some suggested. Others speculated that perhaps he was simply too tired from years of solitary work to fully embrace the happiness of the moment. What none of them could have anticipated was how quickly life's unpredictable nature would reveal itself, giving new meaning to the wisdom hidden in the old farmer's enigmatic words. As father and son settled into their reunited life, circumstances were already aligning to demonstrate the profound truth that what seems like obvious good fortune can transform in ways no one can foresee. The lost horse and the farmer's equanimity. Life on the farm quickly fell into a pleasant rhythm after the son's return. The young man, eager to make up for his long absence, threw himself into the farm work with impressive vigor. Together, father and son repaired fences, tended crops, and cared for their most valuable possession, a strong, chestnut-colored horse that significantly eased their daily labor. On a farm where every task demanded physical strength, this horse was worth its weight in gold, doing the work that would otherwise require several men. One misty morning, as dawn broke over the mountains, the son hurried out to begin the day's chores, his mind preoccupied with plans to expand their vegetable garden. In his haste, he neglected to properly secure the stable door after feeding the horse. By midday, when he returned to harness the animal for plowing, he discovered the stable empty. Panic immediately seized him as he searched the surrounding area, calling for the horse and finding no trace of it. The son rushed back to the house, his face contorted with distress. "Father, Father," he cried out, bursting through the door. "I've made a terrible mistake. The horse has escaped. I left the stable door unlatched, and now our horse is gone." His voice cracked with emotion as he continued. "What will we do? Without the horse, our work will be impossible to manage. The plowing alone will take us weeks instead of days." The old farmer looked up from the simple meal he was preparing and regarded his distraught son with calm eyes. Instead of anger or disappointment, his face showed only thoughtful acceptance. "It happens," he said simply, returning to his cooking. Word of the misfortune spread quickly through the village. By evening, neighbors began arriving at the farmer's house, their faces solemn with concern. "What terrible luck!" they murmured, shaking their heads. "First you work alone for years, then your son returns only for your horse to run away. How will you manage the farm now?" The elder of the village, a respected man whose opinion carried significant weight, approached the old farmer directly. "This is truly unfortunate," he said gravely. "That horse was your most valuable possession. Without it, the burden on you and your son will be unbearable, especially with winter approaching." Throughout this chorus of sympathy and concern, the old farmer maintained his characteristic composure. His weathered face betrayed neither despair nor worry as he thanked his neighbors for their concern. When they insisted on characterizing the event as a terrible misfortune, he simply replied with his familiar refrain, "Bad luck or good luck, who knows?" This response, which had once seemed merely quirky, now struck some villagers as almost callous. How could he remain so detached when faced with such an obvious calamity? They departed that evening whispering among themselves about the old man's strange reaction, wondering if perhaps age had dulled his understanding of their precarious existence, where one misfortune could mean the difference between prosperity and starvation. Little did they realize that the very next day would bring developments that would begin to illuminate the profound wisdom concealed within the farmer's seemingly simplistic philosophy. The double fortune and continued wisdom. The following afternoon, as the sun began its descent behind the western mountains, casting long shadows across the village, a group of children playing near the edge of the forest made an exciting discovery. In the distance, they spotted not one, but two horses grazing peacefully in a meadow. One was unmistakably the old farmer's chestnut horse, its familiar coloration immediately recognizable. Beside it stood a magnificent black wild horse, muscular and proud, with a flowing mane that caught the golden sunlight. Excited by their discovery, the children raced back to the village, breathlessly sharing the news. The farmer's son, upon hearing their animated description, immediately set out to investigate. Following the children's directions, he made his way to the meadow and found exactly what they had described. With patient skill, he managed to approach his father's horse, which was accustomed to human contact. Using a length of rope he had brought along, he secured their own horse and was then able to carefully lead both animals back toward the farm. As the son approached the village with the two horses in tow, villagers emerged from their homes and fields to witness this unexpected turn of events. Whispers of amazement quickly spread as people pointed and exclaimed at the sight of the magnificent wild horse following alongside the farmer's own animal. By the time the young man reached his father's property, a small crowd had gathered. "What extraordinary luck!" the blacksmith called out, his voice filled with genuine delight. "Yesterday you lost one horse, and today you have two. The gods must be smiling upon you after all." The village elder, who had expressed such grave concern just the day before, now beamed with pleasure. "This is remarkable fortune indeed," he proclaimed. "That wild horse is young and strong, worth twice what your old horse is. Your wealth has doubled overnight." Others joined in, congratulating the farmer on this dramatic reversal of fortune. "See how quickly bad luck can turn to good," they exclaimed. "Now you have twice the help for your farm work. Your troubles are over." Throughout this enthusiastic celebration, the old farmer observed the scene with the same quiet demeanor he had shown during yesterday's commiserations. As his neighbors continued to rejoice in his good fortune, he simply nodded thoughtfully and, when pressed to acknowledge this obvious stroke of luck, repeated his characteristic phrase, "Good luck or bad luck, who knows?" This response, which had seemed inexplicable during yesterday's misfortune, now appeared equally puzzling in the face of such obvious good fortune. Some villagers exchanged confused glances, while others laughed it off as simply the old man's way. He always says that they explain to one another with affectionate tolerance. It's just his manner. Yet none could have anticipated how prophetic the farmer's words would prove to be, nor how quickly life's unpredictable nature would again demonstrate itself, bringing yet another dramatic turn in the continuing saga of fortune and misfortune. The broken leg and apparent misfortune. The wild horse, despite its majestic appearance, presented a formidable challenge. Unlike the docile farm horse that had served the old farmer for years, this creature had known only freedom in the mountains. Its spirit remained untamed, its powerful muscles unaccustomed to harness or human command. For such an animal to become useful on the farm, it would need to be properly trained and gradually accustomed to working alongside humans. The morning after acquiring the wild horse, the old farmer's son approached his father with determination gleaming in his eyes. "Father," he announced confidently, "I'm going to tame the wild horse today. Once it's trained, we'll have twice the help with our farm work. Everything will be easier." The old farmer, who had spent a lifetime observing the unpredictable nature of both animals and fate, looked at his son with concern. "Be careful," he cautioned, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "Taming a wild horse requires patience and skill. You've spent many years in the city studying books, not working with animals. Perhaps we should ask Wong from the northern farm to help. He has tamed many horses in his time." But the young man, filled with the confidence of youth and eager to prove his worth after his long absence, brushed aside his father's concerns. "Don't worry, father. I've watched how the horse trainers work in the city. I understand the principles. The horse must learn to trust me. That's all. I'll be careful." With these assurances, the son led the wild horse to a flat area behind the barn where he had created a makeshift training ring. The old farmer watched from a distance, his weathered face betraying little emotion, though his eyes never left his son's movements as the young man began the dangerous task of establishing dominance over the powerful animal. At first, things seemed to progress well. The son moved slowly and spoke in soothing tones, gradually approaching the nervous horse. But when he attempted to mount the animal's back, a crucial step in the training process, disaster struck. The wild horse, still untrusting of human contact, reared violently. The young man lost his grip and was thrown forcefully to the ground, landing in an awkward angle with a sickening crack that could be heard even from where his father stood watching. The old farmer rushed to his son's side to find him writhing in pain, his leg bent unnaturally. It was immediately clear that the bone had broken severely. With the help of neighbors who heard the commotion, the old farmer carried his injured son into the house and sent for the village healer. As word of the accident spread, villagers once again gathered at the farmer's home, this time with faces full of concern and sympathy. "What terrible fortune," they lamented. "First your horse ran away. Then it returned with a wild horse that seemed like good luck, but now your son has been gravely injured. Surely this is the worst luck of all." The village elder shook his head sadly. "Now not only must you care for your injured son, but you must also do all the farm work yourself again. With winter approaching, this is truly a disastrous turn of events." Amid these expressions of dismay and pity, the old farmer maintained his characteristic equanimity. As he tended to his son's broken leg, following the healer's instructions with careful attention, the neighbors pressed him to acknowledge the terrible misfortune that had befallen his family. Yet once again, his response remained unchanged. Bad luck or good luck, who knows? This time, some villagers exchanged exasperated glances. How could the old man maintain such a detached perspective when his only son lay suffering with a broken leg that would take months to heal? It seemed beyond understanding, perhaps even callous. They departed that evening wondering if the farmer's philosophical attitude was really wisdom at all, or merely an inability to properly recognize the gravity of a situation. None of them could have imagined how events would soon unfold, revealing the profound insight concealed within the old man's seemingly simplistic response. The war recruitment and hidden blessing. The peaceful rhythm of village life was shattered one cold morning when the distant sound of drums echoed through the mountain valleys. The villagers emerged from their homes, faces etched with worry as they gathered in the central square, straining to identify the source of the ominous beating. Soon enough, their fears were confirmed as a detachment of imperial soldiers marched into view, their armor glinting in the winter sunlight, their expressions stern and unyielding. These were troubling times in the empire. War had broken out between rival factions in the east and west, a bloody conflict that had already claimed thousands of lives. The emperor's armies were stretched thin across the vast battlefronts, and now they had come to this remote mountain region seeking fresh recruits to replenish their depleted ranks. The commander of the detachment, a hard-faced man with eyes that had witnessed too much death, addressed the assembled villagers. By imperial decree, he announced in a voice that brooked no argument, "Every able-bodied young man from this village is hereby conscripted into the emperor's army. You will serve with honor on the Western Front. Prepare yourselves. We depart at dawn tomorrow." A wave of despair swept through the gathered crowd. Mothers clutched their sons, wives clung to their husbands, and elderly parents looked on with expressions of helpless anguish. Everyone knew what this conscription truly meant. The Western Front was the bloodiest battlefield in the ongoing conflict, a place where few soldiers survived more than a few weeks before falling to enemy weapons or disease. The soldiers moved methodically through the village, entering each home to inspect the male inhabitants. When they reached the old farmer's house, they found the son lying on his sleeping mat, his broken leg still splinted and bound. The commander glanced dispassionately at the injured young man, then turned to leave without a word. A soldier with a broken leg was worthless to an army that needed to march hundreds of miles before engaging in combat. As the imperial detachment departed the next morning, they took with them every young man from the village, except for the old farmer's son. Families throughout the community wept openly as they bid farewell to their loved ones, knowing in their hearts that many would never return from the brutal conflict. The mountain paths echoed with the sound of marching feet and the heart-wrenching sobs of those left behind. In the days that followed, as the village attempted to adjust to the sudden absence of its young men, people began to look at the old farmer and his injured son with new eyes. What had seemed like a terrible misfortune, the broken leg that had caused such pain and inconvenience, now revealed itself as an unexpected blessing. While other families faced the almost certain loss of their sons to the horrors of war, the old farmer's son remained safely at home, protected from conscription by his injury. The village elder, who had been among the most vocal in expressing sympathy for the farmer's bad luck, was the first to acknowledge this remarkable turn of events. He visited the farmer's house, his face solemn, but his eyes reflecting a new understanding. "Now I see what you meant," he said quietly. "The broken leg that we all thought was such terrible fortune has saved your son's life. While our sons march toward almost certain death, yours remains here, alive and safe." Others in the village soon came to the same realization. They gathered at the old farmer's house, not to offer sympathy this time, but to express their newfound appreciation for his wisdom. "You were right all along," they acknowledged. "What seemed like bad luck was actually good fortune in disguise. Your son's broken leg has become his salvation." As they spoke, their faces showed both the pain of their own losses and the dawning recognition of the profound truth embedded in the farmer's philosophy. How quickly judgment could be reversed by circumstances. How easily apparent misfortune could transform into blessing. The old farmer listened to their words with the same quiet composure he had shown throughout all the preceding events. When they finished speaking, expecting perhaps some acknowledgement of his foresight or an expression of relief at his son's exemption from the terrible fate that awaited their own children, he simply nodded gently and replied, "Good luck or bad luck? Who knows?" And with those words, spoken neither in triumph nor in false modesty, but with the genuine understanding that the wheel of fortune continues to turn regardless of our judgments, the villagers finally began to grasp the profound wisdom that had guided this simple farmer throughout his life. The enduring wisdom of accepting life's uncertainty. As seasons turned and years passed in the mountain village, the old farmer's tale became a story told and retold around evening fires. Parents shared it with their children, elders recounted it to the young, and travelers carried it to distant places. The simple phrase, "good luck or bad luck, who knows?" came to represent a profound philosophy that helped people navigate life's unpredictable currents with greater equanimity. The war that had taken so many of the village's young men eventually came to an end, but not before extracting a terrible price. Of the 20 young men conscripted that fateful day, only 3 returned, each bearing physical and emotional scars that would never fully heal. Families who had lost sons, husbands, and brothers to the conflict looked at the old farmer's son, now fully recovered from his broken leg and working diligently alongside his father, with a complex mixture of emotions. There was envy, certainly, but also a growing appreciation for the inscrutable workings of fate that had spared him while taking others. The old farmer himself continued his simple life, working the land with the same steady patience he had always shown. His philosophical approach to fortune and misfortune never wavered, even as new events unfolded in his life and in the village around him. When drought came, bringing hardship to everyone, he faced it with the same equanimity he had shown during times of plenty. When unusually abundant harvests blessed the community in subsequent years, he accepted this bounty without excessive celebration or attachment. What changed, however, was how the villagers interpreted the farmer's outlook. Where once they had seen merely a quirky old man with a strange saying, they now recognized a sage whose wisdom had been earned through a lifetime of observation and reflection. They began to understand that his philosophy wasn't about indifference to joy or suffering, but rather about maintaining perspective, about recognizing that our limited human viewpoint prevents us from seeing the full pattern of consequences that flow from any single event. The village elder, who had lived long enough to witness the entire cycle of the farmer's story, often gathered the younger generation to impart this lesson. When something happens in your life, he would explain, whether it seems wonderful or terrible in the moment, remember the old farmer. Remember how what appeared to be misfortune, a son with a broken leg, became salvation when the soldiers came. And remember also that good fortune, like finding a wild horse, can lead to unexpected suffering. The farmer's wisdom, he would continue, lies not in predicting how events will unfold, but in understanding that they unfold in ways we cannot predict. His equanimity comes not from detachment from life, but from a deep engagement with life's fundamental nature, its constant change, and the interconnection of all events. Children would listen wide-eyed to these explanations, not fully comprehending their depth, but absorbing something of their essence. Adults would nod thoughtfully, connecting the philosophy to their own experiences of reversals and unexpected outcomes. And the oldest among them, who had witnessed enough of life's surprising turns to know the truth of the farmer's wisdom firsthand, would smile in quiet recognition. As for the old farmer himself, he continued to respond to life's developments, both the apparently fortunate and the seemingly catastrophic, with the same measured phrase that had become his legacy. Good luck or bad luck, who knows? Not as a dismissal of the very real joy and suffering that accompanied these events, but as an acknowledgement of the larger truth that our immediate judgments are always provisional, always limited by our inability to see the full tapestry of cause and effect that extends beyond our immediate perception. In time, this philosophy spread beyond the confines of the small mountain village, carried by merchants and travelers who recognized its profound value. It became a touchstone for people facing difficult circumstances, a reminder that today's disaster might contain tomorrow's blessing, and that excessive celebration of good fortune might blind us to its hidden risks. The story of the old farmer and his unwavering perspective on life's unpredictable nature thus became more than just a tale. It became a lens through which generations would learn to view their own experiences with greater wisdom and acceptance, finding in its simple message a profound guide for navigating the complex currents of human existence. And so, dear listeners, we come to the end of our journey with a wise old farmer whose simple phrase, good luck or bad luck, who knows, carries a profound message that remains as relevant today as it was in ancient China. In our modern world of instant judgments and emotional reactions, perhaps we too can learn to pause before labeling events as purely good or bad, recognizing that life's tapestry is woven with threads that connect in ways we cannot always foresee. If you've enjoyed the destiny and found wisdom in this timeless tale, be sure to share it with friends and family who might also appreciate its message. Learning English becomes so much more meaningful when the stories we use to practice contain wisdom we can apply to our own lives. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Has there been a time in your life when something that initially seemed like bad luck turned out to be a blessing in disguise? Or when apparent good fortune led to unexpected challenges? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what another listener needs to hear today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to LMJ English for more captivating stories that enhance your English skills, and hit that notification bell so you'll know immediately when our next story is uploaded. Your support enables us to continue bringing these meaningful tales to English learners worldwide. Thank you for joining me today on this journey of language and wisdom. Until our paths cross again in the next story, keep practicing your English and remember the farmer's wise words when life takes unexpected turns. This is LMJ English, where stories bridge languages and connect hearts. Goodbye for now. Vocabulary list in English. Destiny. Noun the events that will necessarily happen to a particular person in the future. Example. The old farmer understood that destiny often unfolds in unexpected ways. Equanimity. Noun calmness and composure. especially in a difficult situation. Example: the farmer maintained his equanimity even when his horse ran away. Solitude, noun the state of being alone, especially by choice. Example: the old farmer lived in solitude while his son studied in the distant city. Profound, adj very great or intense, having deep insight or understanding. Example: the villagers eventually recognized the profound wisdom in the farmer's simple philosophy. Villagers in those who live in a village. Example: the villagers often express their sympathy for the old man's situation. Conscript, verb to enlist someone compulsorily, typically into the armed services. Example: the soldiers came to conscript all the young men in the village for the war. Tame, verb to make wild animals obedient and harmless. Example: the son's attempt to tame the wild horse led to his injury. Perspective, noun a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a point of view. Example: the farmer's perspective on fortune and misfortune was wiser than anyone realized. Misfortune, noun bad luck or an unfortunate condition or event. Example: what seemed like a misfortune when the son broke his leg turned out to be a blessing. Fortune, noun chance or luck as an arbitrary force affecting human affairs. Example: the old man understood that fortune is unpredictable and constantly changing. Unpredictable, adj not able to be foreseen or known beforehand. Example: life's unpredictable nature was the central theme of the farmer's philosophy. Wisdom, noun the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Example: the farmer's wisdom was revealed through his consistent response to both good and bad events. Detachment, noun the state of being objective or aloof. Example: the farmer's detachment from judging events as good or bad showed his deep understanding of life. Recruitment, noun the action of enlisting new people in the armed forces. Example: the war recruitment saved no young man in the village except the farmer's injured son. Blessing, noun a beneficial thing for which one is grateful. Example: the broken leg that seemed terrible was actually a blessing that saved the son's life. Philosophy, noun a theory or attitude that acts as a guiding principle for behavior. Example: the farmer's simple philosophy helped him maintain calm in all circumstances. Tapestry, noun a complex or interconnected series of events. Example: life's tapestry is woven with threads that connect in ways we cannot always predict. Equanimity, noun mental calmness, composure, and evenness of temper, especially in a difficult situation. Example: the farmer faced all of life's events with remarkable equanimity. Cyclical, adj occurring in cycles, recurrent. Example: the farmer understood the cyclical nature of good and bad fortune. Foresight, noun the ability to predict what will happen or be needed in the future. Example: what the villagers initially mistook for lack of concern was actually the farmer's remarkable foresight.